At 29 years old, I found out the man I'd called Dad my entire life wasn't my father. It still makes my stomach twist just saying it out loud. Imagine going almost 3 decades believing you knew who you were, where you came from, and then one moment just shatters everything. I always thought my family was normal. Complicated, sure. We had our arguments, our rough patches, but nothing out of the ordinary. My dad was quiet, steady, the kind of man who worked long hours and didn't talk much, but he was there. And my mom? She was the glue, the one who always kept us together. Or at least, that's what I believed. Until the day I stumbled across the truth. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in what most people would probably call an average middle-class family. Nothing flashy, nothing picture-perfect either, just regular. My dad, well, the man I thought was my dad was a mechanic. He'd leave the house every morning before sunrise with grease already on his hands, come home tired, eat dinner, and fall asleep in his recliner with the TV still on. He wasn't warm and affectionate, but he was steady, reliable. The kind of man who made sure the bills were paid, the car ran, and the roof didn't leak. My mom was the opposite. Loud, bubbly, the type who'd start talking to strangers in the grocery store checkout line like they were old friends. Everyone loved her. She organized school bake sales, coached my little brother's soccer team, made birthdays a big deal. If Dad was the bones of the house, Mom was the heartbeat. I had one younger brother, Michael. He was 3 years behind me and basically my shadow growing up. He was always into sports while I leaned more toward books and writing, but somehow we made it work. I was protective of him. He was annoying as hell sometimes, but he was my little brother. From the outside, we looked like any other American family. A dad who worked with his hands, a mom who ran the show, 2 kids trying to figure themselves out. If you told me back then that there was a huge, life-altering secret hiding under all of that, I would have laughed. My parents fought sometimes, sure, but whose don't? I never saw it coming. Not even a hint. At least not until the little cracks started to show, things I brushed off at the time, but now they feel like neon warning signs I just refused to read. Looking back, the signs were there. They weren't loud or obvious, just little things that, at the time, I brushed off as nothing. The first one I can remember was when I was maybe 12 or 13. I overheard one of my aunts joking at a family barbecue, saying something like, "She doesn't look a thing like her dad, does she?" I laughed it off because kids hear stuff like that all the time. Families tease, right? But the way my mom's face tightened for a split second, like she'd been caught, stuck with me. Then there were the doctor's visits. Anytime a nurse or doctor asked about family medical history, my mom would jump in before my dad could say a word. She'd answer everything quickly, like she'd rehearsed it. Back then, I thought she was just being helpful. Now I wonder if she was protecting her script. And then there was my dad himself. Don't get me wrong, he was there. He paid for braces, came to a few soccer games, taught me how to check my oil. But there was always a distance. A kind of barrier. Like he didn't quite know how to connect with me. With Michael, it was different. They bonded over sports, cars, all the typical father-son stuff. With me, it felt like he was trying, but never really reaching me. At the time, I chalked it up to personality differences. Not every dad is the warm, huggy type, right? But when you put all those little pieces together, the picture starts to look a lot clearer. Still, none of it prepared me for the moment when the truth actually surfaced. Because when it did, it wasn't a whisper or a suspicion anymore. It was undeniable proof, staring me right in the face. The truth came out in the most ordinary, almost boring way, through a medical form. I'd gone in for a routine checkup, nothing major, just the kind of thing you put off when you're busy with work. The nurse started asking the usual questions about family medical history. Diabetes? Heart disease? Cancer? I rattled off what I knew, but then she asked about blood types. That one tripped me up. I knew mine was O positive, but when she asked about my parents, I realized I had no idea. So later that night, I casually brought it up at dinner. "Hey, Mom, Dad, do you know your blood types?" The way the air changed in that room is something I'll never forget. Dad shrugged, said he wasn't sure. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth, and she muttered something about being A. Her voice was too quick, too clipped. That might have been the end of it if Michael hadn't chimed in. saying he remembered doing a school project where Dad had told him he was AB. And just like that, my brain started turning. Oh, positive. Up. The numbers didn't add up. And I'm the type of person who can't let go once something doesn't make sense. So a week later, when one of my friends gave me a 23andMe kit as a birthday gift, I thought, why not? It was supposed to be fun. A little genealogy, a little health info, maybe a surprise distant cousin somewhere. What I got instead was the kind of surprise that guts you from the inside out. When the email from 23andMe hit my inbox, I was excited. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my laptop, and clicked view results like I was about to open a surprise gift. At first, it was fun. The ancestry map showed a few regions I expected, a couple that surprised me. Then I scrolled down to the relatives section. That's when my stomach dropped. I expected to see my dad's side of the family. Cousins, maybe even a match to one of my uncles. But none of them showed up. Not a single familiar name. Instead, there was someone listed as a close family match. A man I had never heard of. The site estimated parent/child relationship. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of glitch. I reread it about 10 times, my hands shaking, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. Parent/child. Parent/child. Over and over. I immediately thought of my dad, the man who raised me. How could this stranger on my screen be more connected to me than him? That's when the ugly, impossible thought crept in. What if the man I grew up calling Dad isn't actually my father? I wanted to slam the laptop shut, to unsee it, but it was there in black and white. Cold, scientific proof. My life, rewritten in a single click. I sat there for hours, numb, staring at the name of this man I'd never met, while the weight of what it meant pressed down on me like I couldn't breathe. And the worst part? Deep down, in a place I didn't want to admit, I already knew the truth. I didn't wait long. I couldn't. The DNA results burned a hole in my chest, and every time I looked at my mom, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. So one night after dinner, I asked her to sit down with me. My dad was already dozing in his recliner, the TV humming in the background. My brother was out with friends. It was just the two of us. I didn't dance around it. My voice was shaking, but I went straight in. Mom, is Dad really my father? The color drained from her face instantly. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again, but no words came out. That silence was all the answer I needed. I pressed on, louder this time, my hands trembling. I did a DNA test. There's someone else. Someone I've never even heard of, listed as my father. So tell me the truth. Tell me right now. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered my name, tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. And then she said it, the words that split my life in half. You're right. He's not your biological father. I swear the room spun. My ears rang so loud I could barely hear the rest of what she was saying. Something about being young, about making mistakes, about wanting to protect me. But all I could hear was the echo of that one truth. He's not your father. I remember yelling, crying, asking how she could lie to me for 29 years. How she could look me in the eye, day after day, and let me believe a life that wasn't real. She broke down sobbing, begging me to understand, saying she never wanted to hurt me, that she thought it was for the best. But to me, in that moment, it felt like my entire childhood had been a carefully crafted lie. And I couldn't unhear it. After that night, nothing in my family felt the same. I couldn't even look at my mom without feeling sick. Every smile, every hug, every I love you she'd said over the years suddenly felt fake, rehearsed, like it was part of a cover-up. I started avoiding her calls, barely speaking when I did pick up. With my dad, the man who raised me, it was even harder. He didn't know I'd found out. He'd sit across from me at the breakfast table, sipping his coffee like always, and I'd just stare at him, wondering if he could feel the difference. Wondering if he'd known all along. I pulled away from my brother too. He noticed. One night he cornered me in the kitchen, asking why I was acting so weird. I almost told him everything right then, but I couldn't bring myself to rip his world apart the way mine had been. So I just lied and said I was stressed about work. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop obsessing over that name from my DNA results, the man listed as my biological father. I Googled him more times than I want to admit. His face stared back at me in photos from social media, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. I'd catch glimpses of my own features in him and feel my stomach drop. Everywhere I turned, the life I thought I knew was unraveling, thread by thread. And the question eating at me was simple but impossible. Do I stay silent and try to live with this lie, or do I go looking for the man who gave me half my DNA? For weeks, I told myself I didn't need to know more, that I could just bury the truth and move on. But the thing about secrets is, once they surface, they don't go back under. They eat at you. They demand answers. Every night, I found myself back on that 23andMe page, staring at his name. I Googled him so much I probably boosted his search rankings. I learned where he lived, a small town just 2 hours from me. He was married. He had kids. My half-siblings. I stared at their photos, at his smile, at the way his eyes crinkled in a way mine did too. It was surreal, like looking into a distorted mirror. At first, I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not my brother. Not even my closest friends. But eventually, I cracked. I called one of my college roommates, the only person I trusted with my raw secrets, and spilled everything. She listened, quiet at first, then said the words I'd been avoiding. You have to reach out. For your own sanity. Even if it's messy, you need to know who he is. She was right. I couldn't live the rest of my life with this giant hole in my identity. So I drafted a message. Simple. Polite. Scared out of my mind. Hi, my name is... This might sound strange, but based on DNA testing, I believe you may be my biological father. I don't want to cause problems in your life, but I'd really appreciate the chance to talk. My finger hovered over send for almost an hour. My heart raced, my palms sweated, and every bone in my body screamed not to do it. But then I thought about my mom's lie, about all the years stolen from me. And before I could talk myself out of it, I hit send. And just like that, the waiting game began. He replied the next morning. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, checking my phone every hour. When the notification finally came through, my stomach flipped. His message was short, just a few sentences, but it changed everything. I think you're right. I always wondered if this might happen one day. If you're open to it, I'd like to meet. I sat there staring at those words, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. He knew. He had always known. We agreed to meet at a quiet diner off the highway halfway between us. I got there early, sat in my car rehearsing what I'd say, though honestly, no amount of practice could prepare me for that moment. When he walked in, I knew instantly. It wasn't just the DNA test. It was the way his face mirrored mine in subtle ways, the shape of his jaw, the arch of his eyebrows. I felt like I was looking at the older version of myself. He smiled nervously and said, "Hi." Just that. One word, but my throat tightened so much I could barely respond. We talked for hours. About how he met my mom. About how things were complicated. Messy. About how she chose to raise me with the man who became my dad. He admitted he always wondered if I was his, but said my mom made it clear she didn't want him involved. So he stepped back. I was angry. Angry at her for keeping him from me. Angry at him for giving up so easily. But under the anger, there was something else, relief. Relief at finally having answers, at finally putting a face to the missing half of myself. When I left that diner, I didn't know if we'd ever build a relationship. I didn't know what this meant for the future. But I knew one thing for certain. My life would never, ever be the same. It's been months since that first meeting, and I'm still trying to process everything. Some days I feel lighter, like I finally know the truth about myself, like a piece of me has clicked into place. Other days, I feel weighed down by anger, confusion, and grief for the life I thought I had. My relationship with my mom is fractured. We talk, but it's surface level, careful. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her for lying to me for 29 years. She says she did it to protect me, but the truth is, she was protecting herself. My dad, the man who raised me, still doesn't know I found out. I can't bring myself to shatter his world. Not yet. A part of me wonders if he's always known, or at least suspected, but chose to love me anyway. And if that's true, it makes me love him even more. As for my biological father, we're taking small steps. Coffee every few weeks. Texts here and there. It's strange and awkward and sometimes overwhelming, but it's real. And that's something I never had before. If there's one thing this whole experience has taught me, it's that the truth has a way of finding you, no matter how long it's been buried. It doesn't always set you free. It can break you first, but eventually, it gives you the chance to rebuild. I don't know exactly where my story goes from here, but I do know this. I refuse to live in lies anymore. My life may have been built on a secret, but my future won't be. That's it for today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more daily threads, and drop a comment to let me know your thoughts. See you in the next one.